Entering the atmosphere in T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Run.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by Gooey Fame. What's going on, Goo? How are you?
So, yesterday I was telling you about this farmer's market we went to.
Yeah.
It was actually in Woodstock, Illinois, which is where they filmed the movie Groundhog Day.
Oh, really?
And I'm kind of feeling like that right now. I took a picture of the Opera House, that's the hotel in the movie, and I was like, I'm gonna get Groundhog Day, and I was joking, but here I am. We've relived this intro 3 times.
and you know what? It's got better each time. I dare say. Just, not to pat ourselves on the back here.
I'm doing well, though. I'm doing well.
Well, that's great. That is fantastic. I'm happy that you're here. We've had a little bit of technical snafus, so this is attempt number 3 in order to get this working. But as my father always told me, third strike, you're out. So there we go. It looks like we're in business here. I'm excited. Glad to have you back on the show, Goo. I know that like you and I talk all the time, but it's been a while since you've been on the show. What's going on, man? What's new in your world? How's all the pods doing? What you been playing? All that kind of good stuff.
Good. We're still rocking. Flashback 64. Been doing stuff. I was talking to you about, eventually I want to start covering some Metroid over there, before maybe we get to Smash. I'd like to get everything pre N64, and maybe we can we'll probably talk about it over time, but maybe we'll talk about the lack of Metroid, of course, on N64. But we've also been streaming, and just because it's sort of Metroid adjacent, I wanted to shout out, I've been playing the new Prince of Persia game, which has the Metroidvania elements to it, and I know you were playing it, and I saw you say it was really good, and I've been playing it, and I'm loving it. It's a great game.
It's really fantastic. I feel like a nice blend of movement and combat, which some Metroidvanias can kind of steer a little bit too close to like one of those for my liking, but I thought that this one was right in the middle. I'm meaning to play like all the like they're coming out with like some DLC and updates and stuff like that. Some of them might even be available now. So I've been meaning to jump back in. But yeah, that's I'd probably say that's my like game of the year at this point of the year, and we're almost done. So yeah, I'm glad that you're barreling through that. I've been playing a lot of Metroid. I mean, go figure. I've been playing a lot of Metroid games. I've been going through Federation Force for some reason.
I saw that. Yeah.
And I can't really explain myself why. I just kind of felt like it. Played AM2R yesterday, which was great. A little 100% run, so that was cool. So been a pretty quiet weekend here. That was highlighted by a trip to the theater. Not the farmer's market, but a trip to the theater. So I am stoked. It's finally time. This is one of my favorite things that we do on this podcast. It is Alien in Review, and I am fired up because, of course, we are talking about Alien Romulus, which you and I both saw yesterday. I have a ton of thoughts on. I'll just come right out and say it. I loved it. I thought it was a great movie, so I can't wait to dive a little bit deeper into that. Before we get started, though, this is what I want to tell everybody. The first, let's call it half, of this podcast is going to be spoiler free. Okay, so if you haven't seen Romulus yet, but you are an Alien fan, you can listen, and we will give a big warning when we are going to talk about spoilers, because the back half of the show is going to be spoiler talk. So we'll give, like I said, a bunch of notice, a bunch of warning, but we are going to be talking some spoilers here. So I'm excited about that. And you know what, Goo? Right before we even talk about Romulus, I want to talk to you about something else. I saw last night that there was a like a 10-second clip that was leaked for the new, I think it's a Hulu show, the new Alien show that's coming out, which is titled Alien Earth. Have you heard about that?
I heard about it because we were there before the movie. We had Nuvi on. You know, Maria Menounos was taking us through different
Oh,
clips and things like that, like she does. And I think we saw it twice, like a little teaser for this show. And I remember hearing, you know, there was some show they were making, and I kind of forgot about it. And then I don't think I'd ever heard the title before, but so
I think
seeing,
it was new. Like I think this was a new like reveal, and obviously
I see.
I actually think it sounds a little bit weird, like Alien Earth kind of sounds, doesn't quite like roll off the tongue like some of the
Well,
other.
it's a friggin' oxymoron, if you
Yeah,
ask me. What the hell?
maybe, you know what it should have been? It should have been like Alien Earthbound or something. Now that's a title. Um, however, I kind of like the idea of like the show being on Earth and like kind of focusing on the Weyland Yutani Corporation. I think that that's kind of like an
Hmm.
engaging
That'd be cool.
place to go. So I'm optimistic about that show. I mean we don't know anything about it, but I think it like, I don't know. I think it sounds kind of cool enough, anyways.
Yeah, did any sorry, it does seem interesting. I know I'm off topic, but did any of the trailers catch your fancy?
You know what? I'm glad that you said that because I wanted to start there because
Okay.
I was gonna say I think the single worst thing about Alien Romulus is the Mufasa trailer.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man, listen, I'm sure that like, I love The Lion King, like the 1992 or 3 or whatever like movie, amazing movie, one of my childhood movies. I think it's still
Yeah. Yeah.
exceptional. But I mean like, I remember we did a virtual theater episode on it. Remember when we were talking about like, I think that the Lion King live action movie is going to get dumped on by critics, and it eventually did. It made a bunch of money, but I just like, man,
I saw that. Yeah, it was bad. Yeah.
what was the word you used? You used, I think it was soul crushing. That was pretty.
Yeah.
That was pretty
It
apt.
it hurts worse because it's like uh you know, whatever. If it was just some other, first of all, this type of movie would have been like one of those straight to VHS like movies or whatever that you get
Yeah.
a kid, like, you know, like Simba's Pride or whatever. But now it's like this is like one of the gonna be one of the most expensive productions I feel like of a movie. But also I guess the thing that's really soul crushing about it is seeing, you know, is Barry Jenkins, I think, is the director, and it's one of those classic cases of someone who got to make, you know, like one or two like Academy Award winning movies, and then they're just sucked in. And they're like, well, now you're making like a Simba's Pride style movie.
Yeah.
So that just bums me out because I've loved, you know, especially Moonlight. I loved the movie Moonlight, and so it's just like this is what you've been working on, you know. No disrespect, but you
I
know,
mean,
get paid. It's just like I wish, you know, that he was given money to make something
yeah. That's just it.
original,
You
you
like,
know.
you get paid. That's, and there's a few trailers like that actually. And I don't know if we'll spend a second talk about the trailers too, because I think that's fun. But there was that. There was like the Captain America trailer, and I was like, man, this is just so cooked. Like it's just, I don't know. It
Yeah,
like Harrison
yeah,
Ford is there. He's getting paid. Anthony Mackie's getting paid. Whatever. That's totally fine.
yeah.
Um, I did see. Now I can't remember any of the names. Oh, there's also, I saw a trailer for like this hockey death metal movie that now I can't remember
Oh, I
the
didn't see
trailer about.
that.
The one that stuck out to me was the new, like the Halle Berry movie that's coming out.
I don't think I had that one either.
I think it was called. Oh God, it was like a horror movie, and it kind of had like the same kind of vibe almost as like The Village, like M Night Shyamalan The Village, where it was like, my interpretation was like there's this like cabin in the woods or whatever. She's got her kids like tied up to a rope, saying like you can't go past. It's kind of like a mix of The Quiet Place
Oh,
plus The Village. It looked pretty cool. I will
mhm.
try and find out what it's called here. But what trailers did you see
You
that you
know
liked?
what I want to see Smile 2. I I don't know if you saw that trailer.
I did not.
Um
No.
I remember, you know, it's not even been that long since the first one, and I remember I would kind of make fun of it just from the trailer because it was just like, you know, I'd imagine the pitch meeting and they're like, what if smiling was scary, you know? But
Yeah.
then after a while, I just kept thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? It seems like a fun, like schlocky kind of horror thing, which I'm in. Like, I like a lot of movies like that. Like, you know, the Curse of Michael Myers or whatever. It's like but anyway, I never saw it though. McKenna did and said it was all right. And then this trailer came up and it looked good. Like I was just like it was a good trailer, and I was like, yep, it's a silly concept, but I'm like if they want to do a franchise out of the smiling haunting type movie, I'm into it.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that stood out to me.
I think that's okay. I never saw the first one either, but I mean, I'm an Alien fan. I like kind of a good schlocky, like a
It
g- kill
it
them one by
has a
one kind
good
of thing. Like,
it has like kind of a fun premise too, because the person who's being haunted is like a pop star. So
hmm,
she's having to like there's like one thing in the trailer like that it ends with where it's like a fan and she's like, "Oh, do you want me to sign this?" And the fan's just like smiling at her, and I like that idea of like being chased down by this like supernatural thing, like when like everyone's got their eyes on you. Like, you know what I
yeah.
mean? You're not just some like person, but like you're prominent, you're featured, and I'm interested to see how that's pulled off. Whether it's good or bad, I think it'll be fun.
You know, so Sam and I we were talking about you last night as we were driving home from the movie theater. We were talking about you and McKenna, and because we were talking about some like horror movie, like our particular taste in horror movies, and I was saying, and you know this, like I have a hard time with like supernatural horror movies. Like it has to
Mm.
be done well, otherwise it just comes off as like hokey to me. We were talking about Hereditary actually, which I know most people really love, but it didn't quite hit for me because I thought it was just a little. I thought it was a little too hokey at the end, so it did. You know what I mean? But like,
Hmm.
so that's like it's a tough line for me in terms of that. But like I was saying, like I love obviously like sci-fi and stuff like that, and that I feel like there's not a world of difference between the two. So like I don't know why one connects with me, one doesn't. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll give that Smile movie a shot next time that we're
Yeah,
looking for something. Sam doesn't do well with horror movies at all. She was like gripping my arm
really.
during Romulus. Yeah. Never
Well,
Let Go, by the
dude.
way, is that Halle Berry movie. It looks pretty cool.
Okay, I don't blame her with this. I mean, there's some gnarly stuff in the movie.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I w-
Let's get
yeah.
into it. I'm ready. I am ready to talk about Alien Romulus. I have a bunch of thoughts here. And like I said, so we'll keep the opening bit spoiler free, and then we'll tell you when we're gonna get into spoilers here.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, like I guess, yeah. First and foremost, it's really awesome to see a lot of the reviews have been very, very positive, both critically and from the audience, and it looks like it's made a pretty decent amount of money so far at the box office, which is great because that hopefully means that you got some more Alien movies coming. And I think that how do you say this guy's name? Fede Alvarez? Is that Alvarez? Is that right?
Fede
Fede?
Alvarez. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Fede. He gets it. This guy gets it, man. I was watching this movie and I was like, all right. So Fede Alvarez has like paid homage to pretty much every single movie in the franchise in some form or fashion in this film.
Hmm.
It was. I thought. I think arguably I'm about to say something that maybe I can't take it back once I've said it, but I think I'm gonna say it. I don't think it was my favorite Alien movie, but it might be one of like the best. It might be the best Alien movie in terms of
Hmm.
like everything that it does. Like I don't think I'll ever have an Alien movie that I like more than the original. Um, but man, this was really really good. Like he gets it. He gets what makes a good Alien movie. I thought that like everything about it, like from the look to the cinematography, which is like I think one of the most crucial things
Hmm.
is was spot on. I thought that the aliens themselves look great. I thought that the horror was there, the action was like it was, and I'll extrapolate on all these points, but like just I thought that this is arguably like the best Alien movie like ever. Again, I wouldn't
Hmm.
say it's my favorite, but I would say it probably could be among the best.
I think it's like it's probably I'm not sure where I think I need to see it again. I'm not sure where it totally lands for me. I feel like a lot of stuff you mentioned though, I think is like some of the best stuff they've done. Like
Mm,
especially within like like the one since they kind of brought it back, like with Prometheus. I think it has like the coolest look. Some of my favorite, I think it has like the best sort of set pieces and like horror
Yeah.
and like and vibes overall. I found the thing that keeps it from me, I felt like I think almost everything was pretty competent. I felt like, and this is again where I need to see it again, but I felt like there was aspects of the story that didn't fully hit for me, didn't fully connect. But it was like a very fun
Yeah.
like movie, and I feel like pretty strongly about it. Like I think it was like a really good movie, but for me it didn't hit like it wasn't like that was like one of the best. But
Okay.
I still enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, in like even if this movie for me was like a what are the like 7 Alien movies, even if it was like number 4
Mhm.
or number 5, like I still think like I really like every Alien movie, so I would have been perfectly fine with that. I would say that I'd put this in my top 3 easily. And I would need to think about it, probably see it again to see where we're going. I do have some critiques about the movie, and I think we should save it for the spoiler section.
Mhm.
I
Oh,
think.
sure.
But
I want to
yeah,
agree with you. I think the director like gets it for sure, and like a lot of it was like recreating, like especially from the first one, like in terms of
yeah,
the design and everything, really went for that. But obviously brought in other stuff. And I mean, I enjoyed his he did the Evil Dead remake, and I thought that was pretty well done. So I feel like this is very much like comparable to that. I also like the movie Don't Breathe, which was an original um,
okay,
of his. But anyway, I do think he gets it. I did think sometimes the homage stuff like was like there's a couple times where it took me out of it, and I think that
hmm.
that
I
was
think I
like
know what you're talking
secondary.
about.
I, yeah, I think other times it's little things where I'm like, where it's like, there are some times where, and I've seen all the movies a couple times, and like in the last few years, but there were a couple times where I was like, wait, was that a reference? Oh, okay, yeah, it was, and it like bothered me because it felt I was like, that feels like a reference I should know, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking about like what movie is this from, and it kind of
Hmm.
takes me out of the movies, and then other times I was sort of like then there's the more obvious stuff that I think you might be thinking of. But I'm still I
Yeah,
have mixed feelings about that stuff too. But that was sort of secondary to like my main critique, and we can get into it. Is like I didn't. It's not even that bad, but it's like other than like kind of the lead characters, I was sort of not as invested in like the other characters and stuff like that, which tends to happen
yeah.
in a lot of the sequels, especially where there's like a lot of alien fodder and they don't always get as built up or like as deep of stories, and it's a hard line to walk, but that was where it mostly hurt for me, was I was less invested in it as a story and more as like a spooky romp. You know.
I think that's fair. I think. I mean, yes, you're right. Like the main characters are, of course, like where the story kind of lives and dies. But I think, and I guess let's just jump right into it here.
Mhm.
I thought that the casting was actually like really good, and like one of the stronger casts of characters. Like if you were asking me like what is the absolute strongest cast of characters in any Alien movie, I'd probably say Aliens, because like I feel like you cared about every character there, and then I'd probably say Alien right after that.
Mhm.
I don't think this was too far terribly behind, but there was definitely a divide between like your main characters and your periphery characters. But I will say, and this I don't think this is a spoiler, but like the movie gets rid of those periphery characters, I think, quick enough that you're not like you know what I
Yeah.
mean. It didn't interfere with my enjoyment of the story, because I thought that the two main characters, Rain and Andy, were really good, really
Mhm.
really good.
Yeah, I like them.
I think specifically for me, Andy was kind of the star of the show. And so Andy is
No
a
surprise.
no surprise, Andy
Not
supremacy.
just the name, but like it's the robot guy, you know.
Oh, he was awesome. Like so he's a synthetic, and he's I mean, so Rain is your main character, and for all intents and purposes, I mean, let's just kind of call it like Rain is sort of like the Ripley of the story, right? She's
Yeah.
like your main character, but Andy is her synthetic. She calls him brother, even though her father, who has passed away, Rain's father, created Andy to kind of protect Rain, and it seems like like his programming is faulty. Like in human terms, you might say that he had like a learning disability or something like that, right? Like that's kind of the way that they presented Andy, and his character changes throughout the course of the movie, and I thought this was awesome. Like he was the most engaging character I thought of the whole thing to me. Like every time, particularly, you know, once his character changed a little bit, I was just like, I can't wait to see what this guy does next.
Yeah. Yeah, he was for sure. And I figured you would like that too. But
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of how it's been with the last few. Like the overall like kind of story they told they with the past two has been a lot more about like the AI and
Mm.
the sentience or whatever. And I kind of like that they had that element there, but they sort of brought it back in and they that's where you say he gets it. I feel like it was cool. Like they brought back in the sort of like story of being like treated like dirt because you're, you know, being exploited and stuff like that. Like that was more, I think, in the back burner in something like Prometheus, you know, where it got into
Mm.
these more philosophical things. So I like that they they had these two characters that kind of represented both of those elements of the franchise and
Yeah.
they played off each other and I mean they were both kind of going through it together, so that was cool.
Yeah, I thought that. I mean, you're right. Like I'm a sucker for, you know, those kind of themes in sci-fi, and once again, I don't know. I feel like the idea of like synthetics, like are they human? Are they not human? Should they have rights? Should they not? I think is always a really engaging story. And it wasn't for like front and center in this film, but it was there. And you're right there. Like the other theme about like the exploitation of everybody on this planet. Um, I thought that the story really worked, but like to me, it was almost like this is as close as you're ever gonna get to having like the two biggest characters in the Alien franchise, Ripley and David, interact with
Hmm.
the almost as a proxy through Rain and through Andy. So I thought that was like fantastic. And I thought that they did a really good job. Like acting wise, I thought that these two were great. Specifically, though, I wanted to shout out Andy, the actor who played him as Johnson, and this guy was awesome. Like I thought that he kind of stole the show actually.
Yeah, I mean that's always a cool feat to pull off, like acting like in a as like an android and acting in different ways and things like that and being convincing like um he did. Yeah, he was awesome.
You know, one thing that I saw, you know, we were talking about how this movie kind of pulled, and I'm gonna go over this more specifically in the spoiler part, but like it pulled from a lot of other Alien movies. I was actually surprised. I felt like there was a lot of inspiration taken from Alien Isolation too, like some direct references, but also like some just kind of tone references as well. Like when they, for example, like when they first land on the Romulus, like the ship, and they go through those little circular hole things, like that's what the alien crawls through in Isolation, and like this the whole kind of vibe of it. Like there's a lot of Alien Isolation there, so I thought that was kind of cool actually, because I think Isolation is like one of those things that like is just it's so good that everybody almost just accepts it as like kind of just like canon in addition to the movies, you know?
Yeah, I think the director has even said as much. Like I think he said that he was inspired by that.
So I thought that was I don't
That's
know, I just thought it was cool to see. Um, yeah, and then and I thought that in terms of the vibe and the mood, I thought that this kind of struck like a really sweet spot between like horror and atmospheric and claustrophobic of the original Alien, and then also a little bit more like action packed and still scary, but
yeah.
like of Aliens. So I thought that it was like right in the middle, and I really liked that kind of vibe because it wasn't just a rehash of the first Alien, but it was different than Aliens as well. And it had a little bit of that philosophicalness that you mentioned of the prequels, which I always am appreciative of. So I thought that the vibe of the movie was like really like spot on. Actually, he like again he kind of nailed it.
It reminds me of and and I think you'd like this because I think you're into this movie, but it's a movie that I have sometimes similar feelings about. But it reminds me of The Force Awakens in that regard, in that it was like after all these years of like all this different stuff, and they're trying to rein it back in, where they were like, I remember first seeing trailers for that where it's like it looks like Star Wars,
Mm.
like the old Star Wars, not the prequel stuff. It looks like classic Star Wars. And I feel like it has that a little bit with just like the original Alien, where it's like you look at it and it's like there's like the monitors are all like
Yeah.
the analog or whatever, it's all older looking, but it looks very modern. And I think the look it's good for that. Like I think it's one of the best like looking vibes of some of the modern Alien movies, I think.
I agree. And I wrote that down actually. Like I completely agree with that. I think it struck a really nice balance between like using modern special effects to make some parts of the movie look really good. Like for example, they're on a planet that has like rings around it, like the rings of Saturn or whatever. And that looks spectacular. And there's a lot of like outdoor or not outdoor, like space shots that look really, really great. But it also does have that same kind of like Alien 1980 kind of feel with a lot of the technology, a lot of the effects. Like I thought again, they walked a really good line in making that feel authentic, but
It
like utilizing modern technology.
it did make me want to like I've only seen it the one time, so like a lot of it's, but like it makes me want to like re-look at some of the stuff and see like what there is behind the scenes, because even some stuff like certain things of like ships and things flying around and like some of the space shots,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I assume most of that was CG, but it looked good, and it almost looked to the point where it's like they looked like models. You know what I mean? Like in a way that you would see in something like
Yeah.
Alien or Aliens, but like really clean looking and like I don't know. I can't describe it, but like I was like impressed with even like what I assume were I guess I think I read there was no CG in it, but I think like the director said that, but I think people say that
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely
when there
CG in
really
this
is.
movie for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
But it, like some of those stuff like regardless like looked very like tactile and good, so I gotta give him props to that.
yeah. I thought that the alien looked great in this movie. The alien. I thought I really like Alien Covenant, but I will say one of my critiques of that movie at times is the alien did look kind of. You could tell he wasn't a real, like you could tell it was a CG character, and I think that, I mean, I'm sure that the alien is a CG character in this movie too, but it moved a little bit more like, I don't know what's the like slowly or like ploddingly almost like kind of the original 1980 version where it was just like a little bit more methodical, wasn't quite as fast, wasn't quite as quick, and I think that actually served the horror in this movie well. And you know what I would also say too, I definitely some good body horror and
Oh yeah.
scary moments in this movie
Sure.
in true alien fashion. So that was another instance where I was like, all right, Fede Alvarez gets it.
You made me think I had to go look because I think I saw a photo of someone in like an alien suit. So I think there might have been some type of suit, but I don't want to speak out of pocket.
Well, whatever they did, I thought that it looked really good. Like I think that yeah, the vibe was just like it was really like that sweet spot between I don't know. It felt very atmospheric in a way that I feel like we haven't felt that in a long time. And to go back to your analogy about the Force Awakens, I actually had a different analogy, but that some Metroid fans might appreciate here. To me, it felt almost like when Metroid Samus Returns came out in 2017. It was just like
Oh,
it was
okay. Yeah.
a remake, but it was like everything you kind of wanted for Metroid. It laid the foundation for the franchise going forward, and it wasn't. It was sort of like a soft reboot. Maybe soft reboot is a wrong word, but it was just a way to get the series kind of back on track. Not that this necessarily was off track. I'm talking about Metroid and Alien here, but like certainly there hadn't been a lot of activity in either one of those franchises for a while. So Metroid Returns to me was kind of like it's almost like the precursor for like bigger things to come, like Metroid Dread, Metroid, Prime 4. This to me kind of feels like a new beginning in the same sort of way, where it's like just a solid entry, solid movie, like nail the vibes, nail the, you know what I mean? Just like get the basics
Hmm.
down right, and then you can really kind of build off that going forward. So I thought that this was like, I think it kind of needed to do that. Like it wasn't, I don't think, overly ambitious, which sometimes a movie can be.
Yeah. That's that's the, like, maybe flaw, like slightly more minor, or it kind of ties into the other stuff where I feel like most of the elements that they do really well in it are like them doing something really well from like something else in the franchise.
Hmm.
But I think of like pretty much a lot of them, like pretty much even this one, they all follow kind of a similar story, but presented in like almost a different genre. You have like the horror type thing, or you have like an action movie with aliens, or it's like, I don't know, it's like almost kind of a thriller in some of them, or it's like
Yeah.
really ridiculous, but they all kind of have a similar thing, like with the story. But I feel like they do something slightly different with it. And so, I mean, this was cool, but I guess it probably speaks to like why it's successful. So this is maybe more of a personal thing, but I'm like, I want to see like give me something out there, just slightly out there. Well, it does give you something kind of out there, but we'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that
But
later.
even that is from a different movie. You know what I mean? Like, give
Yeah.
me, like, even with Prometheus, it's not necessarily my bag. I kind of like when we did our episode on virtual theater about it, I was like, I don't know if this is like the thing I'm like wanting them to do. But like thinking about it now, I'm like, well, I kind of like that they're like, let's get philosophical with
I
it.
like
Like,
I kind of liked so I'll set the table with like the very basic plots and all. And by the way, actually, before I even do that, I felt like I like very specifically like did not try and know anything really about this movie before I went and saw it. Like I knew, obviously I knew it was coming out. I knew like the very very basic of it. But like I watched one trailer for it and I was like, I don't really want to watch anymore. Like I just want to kind of go in and be surprised because I mean like I figure a lot of it is like you're right, like the same kind of idea. You're gonna see some kills from the alien and that's gonna be awesome, but plot wise I kind of wanted to be as surprised as I could, and I thought that I was better off for it actually. I don't know, did you kind of do the same thing at all?
I mean, not intentionally, but I don't often run the risk of like, unless it's already come out. Like, I don't usually see like spoilers for movies. Like, I find it not that big of a problem that I deal with, compared to other people I know, I guess. And this was one like, and maybe it's just with trailers. Even I feel like I see them and I get the vibe, but like I'll talk to people and they'll be like, it gave away so much, and I'm like, I have no idea what the movie's about. Like, it just, I got the vibes. So I saw all the trailers just because they would come up or whatever, and even I must have a bad memory because I was talking to someone and they were like saying, oh, they gave away like part of like a chest burster scene in the trailer,
Ah.
and I was like, I don't even remember. Like I think I saw it in the trailer and was like, oh crap, and then like completely forgot. So I didn't go out of my way, but no, I didn't know what the movie was going to be like at all, other than like the little glimpses in the trailer of like shots and vibes. I knew the vibe, and I was, that's it.
Well, I kind of I feel like I don't have a big problem with spoilers for the most part, but there are some movies where I just want to go in and know nothing, and I kind of felt that way with Romulus here. And you're right, like it's kind of the same setup here, but it was actually like instead of like a horror movie or a action movie like Aliens, it almost was like a heist, which I thought was kind of cool. Like the guys, the whole idea, very very general overview here, but so the whole idea is that our group of characters is on this planet, the Jackson Star, and it's a mining planet, and basically you work the mines there until you die, pretty much, and their idea is to go and essentially steal a bunch of like cryogen fuel of this derelict spaceship in order to basically allow them to go into cryosleep for a 9-year journey to get the heck off this planet, go into another planet. And so I thought that like the heist idea was kind of cool. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised again by like most of the plot details here. I don't know. Should we just go into spoilers now? I feel like we're kind of at the end of what we could talk about without diving in.
Sure.
All
Yeah,
right.
sounds good.
So before to put a bow on spoiler free part here, the movie is a great return to form. If you I mean, I really like Prometheus and Covenant. If you didn't like those movies, I think you'll like this movie. I think if you did like those movies, you'll also really like this movie. But especially if you didn't, I think this is just like kind of more like a classic kind of alien movie for you. And actually, which is funny, I guess, because Romulus, I didn't know this actually until they told us this in the movie, but I guess Romulus and Remus in Roman mythology built Rome or laid the foundation for Rome.
Yeah.
I feel like that's appropriate because I feel like this lays the foundation for a lot of what could come next. I think that the first generation of alien movies was obviously all about Ripley. Second generation of alien movies is about David, and I think that they have laid the foundation for what is to come next. So you should definitely see this movie, and when you do, come back and listen to the spoiler part, because the spoiler part starts now. This is your warning. We are going to talk about spoilers for Alien Romulus. Let me repeat that. We are going to talk about spoilers for Alien Romulus from this point to the end of the podcast. So if you have not seen this movie, go watch it. Come back after. Tell us what you think.
All right. I think we're safe, right?
I think we're safe. Yeah. If you're still here, that's your own fault, man. I don't know what to tell you. Let's talk spoilers here. I thought that... So again, I thought that this was awesome. I want to talk about some of the kills. I want to talk about some of the story elements. I want to talk about the ending.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about some of the references to other movies here. Yeah, I'm ready. What do you think? Where should we start, Goo?
Well, so because there's been a couple times this is not a big spoiler. We could have maybe mentioned this in the thing, but I guess my one of my biggest, I guess, sort of flaws, I want to say, because I like most of it, so I just want to like say these things and then just
get them out of
move
your
on with
system.
them.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, I rarely, it's hard the day after. I feel like my thoughts are still stewing. Like I said, I'm not sure. I kind of want to go see it again, actually. But
you know what we'll need to do? We'll need to walk the dog and watch this in July. That's a must, actually.
that would be great.
Yeah.
I would love that. So my
That's a
biggest sort of
must.
thing with the story and the characters that I can get, we talked about the wider heist crew, is really there was an element where there was the guy who didn't like Andy. He didn't like synths. He kind of had the synth racism.
Bjork
because,
is that character's name.
Yeah, because there was sort of a trolley problem situation where a synth chose to let his mom die or something because then more people's lives were saved. You know,
Right.
It was pure cold
Logic.
You know,
Yeah.
logic. Yeah, and so he's got sort of this bias against him, and that was sort of a running element, and it came up in the plot a couple times in a very key part with his this is like pregnant girlfriend?
sister.
Yeah, so like there, you know, it kind of had it came up a lot, but I feel like I wasn't fully like satisfied by that or that character, and I don't know, like I said, I'm still thinking about it. I don't know if that, like, if I watch it again, if it, like, I get that more, but I feel like
Right.
you talked about some of the casts of the other movies. There is always an element and pretty much all of them, of like conflicting sort of power struggles and stuff like this when you're in this like up in the air tense situation, and that there was a little bit of that there was like the part where we want to open the door, but I feel like it didn't fully, like I didn't fully, like, you know, some of those I watched and I'm like, ooh, what are they gonna do now, like how are these two gonna coexist? And it didn't quite work for me. It felt like they were all, maybe because they were all just kind of like, you know, they're like in the other ones I think of, like there's different things like a military structure or prison structure or whatever, and this felt like more of like a classic horror movie of just like, you know, even though we're on another planet, it's like a bunch of young people on like doing a spooky thing together, you know, and it didn't feel like, it doesn't necessarily need to be like in the same confines of the other movies, but I felt like I never fully like bought into their sort of like butting heads is my that's
okay. I mean, I thought that guy was such a douchebag. Like,
yeah,
he's getting on my nerves. Yeah. I think maybe what you're describing is like, I mean, you know the guy's gonna bite it, right? Like, you know the alien's gonna get him. He wasn't like your main.
Yeah.
It might have worked better if it was the main character, actually, like the Tyler, like the main guy that had that issue instead. And maybe he's not such an overt jerk about it, but like that tension clearly exists. Because like I think that if that same scene had happened where the sister is like begging to get out of that room and Tyler is the one whose mom had been already sacrificed, I think maybe that would have been a little bit more engaging, but I didn't have a problem with it for the most part. I thought it was like a fine little story.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny though. I was remarking to Sam last night. We took Link for a walk after we were done, and I was recalling the first Alien movie. Ironically, it was the human, Ripley, that said no to letting someone into the ship because that would break containment protocol. And it was the synthetic that let her in, obviously under very different, directives. But it's funny how that kind of switched now going forward.
Yeah. And so I was just sort of thinking, like, with Andy a little bit, like, he's doing that because he was like basically reprogrammed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's that's good. I like that. And then in the end though, he's reprogrammed back and it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
And so like even that sort of like, I mean, it makes you question a little bit, but even that sort of turn is sort of like, well, he almost didn't have a say in the matter. So I don't know, maybe,
yeah,
I don't know how you could have done it. Like, I'm not very good at this sort of thing, but maybe if maybe like I thought it might have been interesting maybe if you turn the tables even more, maybe that annoying guy, like for whatever reason he actually teams up with Mother.
Dang.
Like maybe Mother, a Rook convinces him, like, because he was manipulating, you saw at the end he's like trying to tell the one girl to leave him behind.
Press the
and
button.
So I'm like, maybe that could have been, that could have made that element maybe more interesting. Like, just that sort of like, I like the idea of people having to sort of like, because of they think it's in their best interest, sort of like, go
work
against
with someone they might not typically work with.
Yeah, or even like betray someone you're working with or something like that, or like not even fully betray them, but do something they don't agree with. That's always kind of an interesting element. And it was there a little bit, like I said, because he was reprogrammed. But
well, let's talk about that really quickly. Actually,
turning the tables, I like that it is kind of a role reversal. So I will say that.
I thought that the character was like fine. I mean, it certainly wasn't like the top kind of theme of the movie, although I would say that that's probably a good place for Alien Earth to explore like that kind of theme more in depth between like synthetics and humans and what that kind of means. So because I really think that that's like an interesting piece, but I think that for me, like it wasn't a big deal, but I see what you're saying. Like it was kind of, it would have been cool to maybe see, I don't know, more of those kind of moral conundrums, I think,
because that is kind of a interesting thought, like especially right now, of like the idea of like letting an AI like decide like what's best to keep people safe. But at the end of the day, you kind of root for Andy and you want to see him relate. So like
I wanted to see him knock this guy out, man. Like I really did.
Like I think that's definitely an interesting thing to explore, and I don't think like that guy should, I didn't like that guy, but that is, I don't know. I maybe that Alien Earth show would be a good place to explore that, of like, wait, you're gonna put like our lives in the hands of AI? It's kind of an interesting thought.
So I thought like one of the coolest things that they did in this movie is so to set the table here a little bit. So the gang, their heist is going okay. They get onto the Romulus and they find some cryogen fuel, I guess, for lack of a better term, but it only fuels them for 3 years and they need 9 years in order to get where they're going. By the way, I was kind of thinking, and I answered my own question here, but for anybody else, I was thinking this too. At the very beginning, I was like, they have a ship. Why don't they just fly away off this awful planet? However, obviously they
I was thinking about that too.
So the thing is, it's not that, because I was like, well, they have to work for 6 years. Like you might as well just make the flight for 9 years. But I was like, well, I guess they have to eat and I guess they have to drink. So that's why they need the cryo fuel.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So it took me like a while to put that together.
But that does make sense. Yeah.
I literally was like, I wonder why they just didn't fly away. As I was walking Link after it, I was like, wait a second, I'm hungry. They must be hungry. So that's why. But so they go looking for another source of cryo fuel and they find it. but they find it in a room that really, really, really needs cryo fuel because that is storing like 1,000 face huggers.
Oh yeah. It's
Um,
very very
intense,
spooky room.
very intense. You've probably seen this one in the trailers. This has like a little bit of water in the floor. It's creepy. But
There's
anyways,
something in the water.
were you having a hard time understanding anybody? By the way, I
Maybe,
was a
I don't
little
know.
bit. The douchebag guy particularly. He is very British accent. Very
Yeah, I think it
British.
was all right.
It was
Can't
okay for
remember.
the most part. Um, but anyway, so in order to basically to get security clearance to get out of there, they take a chip from a fallen android and put it in Andy, and it completely changes his personality, like completely. It upgrades him, gets rid of his stutter, get rid of like all of his tics, everything like that. So like I thought this transformation was so awesome, and he was basically like he wasn't evil like David from Prometheus and Covenant. Like he's very clearly an advanced AI with his own agenda, experimenting, engineering, all that kind of stuff. Andy wasn't evil
Mhm.
when he was like upgraded, let's just call it, but he certainly was cold and calculated and had a new primary directive, which you have to do what's best for the company, which I think is like chilling actually, probably
Yeah,
because it hits close to the truth, in
yeah,
2024.
yeah, and I think that actually, now that I think about it, like that's something that could be, especially if these Do you think these characters will come back?
I was saying last night, I don't know necessarily if Rain and Andy would come back. I think it'd be fine if they did, but if they didn't, I think that's fine too. Earlier in the spoiler-free part, I was saying like the first generation of Alien movies is all about Ripley. The second is about David. I think the third is about Wayland Yutani. Like it's finally time to get into like Wayland Yutani. I feel like,
Okay,
and you don't need this
because
necessarily the same heroes for that.
that I think dealing with what happens with Andy could be like a way of sort of like addressing the sort of theme I was thinking of, which is like this idea of like, well, who like, and I guess that's something Prometheus really did, but like, it's like, who is Andy? Like, is he what does like if he can just be reprogrammed
Mm-hmm.
to put Rain in danger, which is the complete opposite of his original directive, or he can just be told do what's best for both of us, and he'll just do that. Like, what is there humanity in this character, or is he just operating based on his programming? And then that's something. Well, what makes us who we are?
Yeah,
That's the sort of thing. And I think him dealing with that could be interesting in like a follow-up movie. So I don't know. I'm into it.
I love that shit, man. Like that kind of stuff. Like I eat it up. That's what my sci-fi is all about. I love that kind of stuff. Like the kind of conundrums and whatnot. So I think that's like awesome. I really hope like that they explore that more in the franchise. Um, let's talk about another android. I feel like this is going to be very divisive, and some people are going to like it. Some people probably didn't like it. Ian Holm makes a posthumous return in the role of. Well, I guess actually it's not Ash. It's an android named Brooke. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's basically Ash. Might as well be
Same type
Ash.
of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same type of android, same kind of idea. I popped when I saw this. I have to admit, I I don't know how they did it. Like if it was.
Well, it's interesting actually, because I did not pop because I was kind of uneasy by it at first. I was like, and it was kind of distracting in the movie, to be
Mhm.
honest. Where I was like, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Where I was like, what is this? Like, is this cool? Like, does this like, what's the deal? And so what I came to learn is that, and I actually the effect is really cool. He's an animatronic, and
That's
then
what I thought.
and then I think they used some of like the similar to how they did like the CG in Furiosa to like make the faces look closer between her and the kid version.
Hmm.
They did some of that, and then they had a voice actor like do a voice, and
Right.
they got approval from his estate, from his wife or whatever. And so like I don't think it's not even like ethically it's different than say like the Grand Moff thing in Rogue One or whatever. Like, but at first I was thinking about that. I was like, is this weird? I don't know. and I've settled on it's not weird. It is a cool effect, but it was kind of distracting, like
A little
throughout the
bit.
whole movie.
Yeah,
And I think it's gonna because the effect is really cool. Like I think it was maybe a bad idea for it to be him, just because people are gonna really focus on like the ethics of it instead of like it
yeah.
actually being a cool effect. But I don't know if they would have done the prosthetic effect if it wasn't him. You know what I mean? But I kind of wish maybe they did it with like had like especially because they've done the David and
Hmm.
Walter thing, like maybe be another Andy type android could have been cool or something,
Yeah. I my original thought actually was like you almost should have just made it David instead
Yeah,
and that would have but like actually because I would have put a book because I don't
that
think they're ever going to bring maybe they will actually maybe Fassbender will come back and
might have
do
been too
another
expensive
it might
to
have
get
been
Michael.
but I mean like also like
That would have
I
been
have to
cool
imagine
though.
like it probably I'm sure they got permission from Ian Holm's family to do this and
They
I
did,
can't
yeah.
imagine that they didn't so like I don't know. Like
And
I popped for it, but it was I was like it was kind of one of those like oh my god it's Ash, and then I was like you're right. I was like okay I kind of started thinking about like is it AI voice like did they get permission for and I did kind of start thinking about some
yeah,
stuff not in the context of like what was happening in the movie. So you're right. It was a little bit just like kind of jarring for sure, and I think some people are going to take big issue with it and I think that some people probably won't, and I don't know. It was interesting. It was an interesting choice, and for what it's worth, like I thought that the character, like Rook, was really interesting, like really interesting. But
yeah,
the fact that it's Ian Holm does kind of dominate, everything that the character does.
yeah. I'm curious as to I don't know. I think it's gonna be it'll be a contentious thing, and I
Yeah.
think I one my friend I saw a friend post about it. One cool detail that I sort of caught up on was just like the look of it, and he specifically mentioned like when they're talking to them through screens. He shared like images from the first two Fallout games,
Okay.
and where you're like talking to these like you know models through these old dingy screens, and like they have a weird kind of like people are saying it looks uncanny valley, but it is because they built the prosthetic, and he's a robot, so like that I expect actually kind of works. And
Hmm.
like that sort of like looking at him through the grainy screen is kind of a cool vibe. um but yeah, I don't know, I think there's more nuance to it obviously than people are treating it. And I
Yeah.
don't know, there's something about actually building a puppet of him that is kind of cool, but I don't know. It's still maybe a little weird, but I don't know.
It is weird. It's uncomfortable, but I think it was supposed to be. Like I think it was supposed to be a little bit.
Yeah,
This is what I would say. You're right. Like the guy in Rogue One, like Carrie Fisher in the third Star Wars movie. I don't know why I'm just picking on Star Wars here. Probably because Star Wars has done it the most. But like
no,
I thought it was
those
the
are
most
weird.
tasteful of every time that a deceased actor has like been brought back to do something
Yeah,
like this. You know,
it was maybe slightly in poor taste, but I would
slightly.
compare. I would say it wasn't like completely unethical. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't. I wasn't like people. I saw people like. I even saw people saying like, "Oh, it's generative AI and stuff," and it's like you don't even know. Like you don't even know what they did. It's like
Yeah.
clearly so. Like it's gonna generate a lot of like heat regardless, and that's why I think maybe it was just a bad call to do that. But
Yeah. Like
I don't
that's
know.
kind of why I think I might have just went with David. I really do because it would have made
Yeah,
sense because like as we'll learn like what Rook was doing was and I popped so big for this dude. I popped so big. He was working on experimenting with that black gooey stuff, no pun intended, from Prometheus, and I
yeah,
didn't know that this was going to like you hear all the time like and even in Alien Earth like the showrunner's just like I don't care about Prometheus and Covenant. It's just gonna be tied to the original Alien. And I love Prometheus and Covenant, so seeing those ties to that movie was awesome. I was so thrilled to see that like this guy was working on that, and I thought because I thought that was so cool from the
that
original Prometheus. But like David
that
was the one that had that stuff, and he was doing experiments. Now I guess it doesn't make sense that like the actual David gets from whatever planet he was on Covenant to to the starship on the Romulus, but that could have been cool.
Yeah. That was another moment where it wasn't like it crossed the line or anything, but where I was like, they eventually said like the word Prometheus, but I've seen Prometheus like 3 times in the past few years, like every couple of years I'll see it, but like it's just kind of how a lot of these are, where I don't remember like lore. You know what I mean? I remember like sort of what happens and like some of the characters, but he's talking about this goo, and I was like, wait, was there black goo in like Prometheus
Oh,
or something? It's like a
yeah.
major part of the movie, like they're bringing, when they're bringing on the ship, and then he says Prometheus. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, there was black goo. What does it do? And so I was a little
Oh,
bit like, what? So that was sort of distracting, and I was like, okay, so you put the goo in you, and then you can do an Alien 4
oh,
once you get the
dude,
once you get the once you get the Alien -2 goo in you, you can make an Alien 4.
that stuff is so I popped so bad. I loved that. Because I think like Prometheus and Covenant are like movies for people that love lore in this franchise, because they're basically just like lore movies. Like, that's kind of what they are. But I love it,
Yeah.
and I thought that and then like when he was talking and the theme from Prometheus played too, I was like, yes, this is awesome. I was so
Okay,
pumped,
I'm back on board. Yeah,
dude.
I'm
I thought
into
it was so I thought it was so great, because like I mean, it's like people when they kind of dump on the prequels of Star Wars. It's like, no, these are awesome. Come on, man. Like this is, I don't want to pretend that those don't exist. They do exist, and like let's work
it.
with them.
I think it was like a smart way to incorporate it. Like it makes me think of, it's the whole. Can I say kind of a bad word?
Sure.
It's the whole like glup shitto thing, where like there is a way to do that tastefully, and I think even within Star Wars, like I liked that show Andor, and it
Yeah.
like and because it does kind of blend the things from prequels and the originals, and kind of like it tells an interesting part of the gap in that story, and like you have Mon Mothma in there and all that stuff, and it's like, wow, this is cool. It's like a cool expansion.
Hmm.
And then there's other times where it's just like there's a little bit of not glup shitto, but there's sort of like the winking and the referencing Easter egg thing in this, where it crosses the line, like where
I
it's a
will.
little
I will
like,
say actually, there was only one of them that really stuck out to me, and that's
okay, I want to
when
see what it is.
okay,
What is it?
when they were getting like geared up with the guns, and he's like, "This is what the Colonial Marines use." And I was like, "Okay, Colonial Marines is an Alien game."
Yeah, right.
That one stuck out a little bit to me. That was a little on the nose. I thought the rest of them were fine, actually.
That mine was, I'll just say it. I was just like, when he says like you bitch or whatever, get back from her, or get away from her, you bitch or whatever, to the
Oh, like at the end when Andy,
yeah.
yeah. Oh,
That's
come
from
on.
that's from Aliens, and like that like that's what I mean. Like sometimes it's a reference that originally had like kind of a deeper sort of like poignant story moment to it, where it's like,
Yeah.
what Andy would say, I guess, I don't know, I don't know him that well, but it just felt like weird and out of character, and like why would he say that exact line? And that
You're
was
probably right. It probably isn't something that Andy, like the synthetic, would say. I don't know, man. I was just like, that's a sweet moment. Okay, like that's
There's
fine.
a scene, I love the new Planet of the Apes movies, and there's a scene in the first one, and people dog on it, and I defend it, but I'm like, when people dog on it, I am a little bit like, come on, give me a break. But there's a part where whatever Draco Malfoy tells the ape, "Get your filthy paws off me, you damn dirty ape," and I'm like, would he say that phrase? Like, or did he just say it because Charlton Heston said, it's like a reference to the original?
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, okay, like the Easter eggs are cool, I guess, but it was a little much for me. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, your mileage will vary. It's a little on the nose for sure, but I was charmed by it. And like, frankly, when it came in the movie, I was like, okay, we could use like just a little bit of levity here before something, because like it was right after like, and this movie continues this, which we'll talk about here in a second. But like, so the main like portion of it is over. Like the main threat is over, and they're on their starship. But I'm like, I've seen Alien a few times here. I know there's gonna be something else coming,
This
right?
they didn't even try to hide it in
Yeah,
this one. Like it's gonna happen.
which like fair enough, like good. But I do think like in between those, like that's probably when it should come. Like so, I was fine with it. And actually, I meant to say this actually just to put a bow on what you just said reminded me of this, but I want to put a bow on the Ian Holm thing here. I think I would pretty much agree with anybody on their take with it. You know what I mean? Like if someone was like it was disrespectful, it was like egregious, I hated it, I'd probably say like, yeah, okay, I get it. And if someone said like it was really well done, I really loved it, it paid homage, I'd be like, yeah, I think so. So I think I kind of agree with like everybody here.
I think as long as you get your facts straight, then that's fine.
Yes. Yeah.
But like even like I said, like I didn't love it, but I love the effect. So I'm even torn on it. But yeah, as long as people aren't just, I don't think, at least from what I can tell, I don't think there was like generative AI used on it or anything. So let's pump the brakes on that,
Okay, so I want to talk about the ending. I want to talk about some of the kills, and I want to talk about the references to other movies here. Let's start with the ending. Let's just start there, because I think that this is my probably biggest critique of the movie, is that I think that the ending went too long actually. Like once they got back onto the airship, once they escaped the Romulus, I thought that sequence, even though it probably only lasted like maybe 15 minutes, but I thought that it could have been trimmed down even so. And I think that people are going to be talking about Ian Holm, and I think people are going to be talking about the offspring or whatever you want to call it at the end of the movie. The human alien hybrid, and they took this right out of Alien Resurrections, and I think it was done better in Alien Resurrections.
Oh, I thought the same. I felt the opposite. I was like, when the movie, obviously I knew it wasn't actually wrapping up, but when it was doing the fake movie ending, I was almost like, I think if it ended, obviously you wouldn't want to just end there. That's not what you're arguing for. But I think if it ended there, I was sort of feeling like, yeah, it was pretty cool. But like, I was like, I don't know. It felt like the story, it didn't quite do it for me or whatever. And there wasn't too much from that ending part to add to that. But just that creature was so gnarly to me and wild. I loved that creature. Okay. It was truly disturbing to me. And I was sort of like, I was watching it and like this was my face. I was like a little bit shocked. I mean, I sort of expected to see gross things, but like I got locked in with that ending part because I was like, when you first see it as a baby,
actually,
I'm like, I was on the edge of my seat, like, what the fuck is this thing?
We need to talk about the scene immediately before that, actually, because that was gnarly. Holy, and so we should mention too, the girl is pregnant. I actually thought she was probably the worst one in the movie. She was kind of like a stock character, just like always in distress, like always, you know what I mean? Just kind of very little agency of her. I'd say she's probably my least favorite of them. But anyway, so she injects herself with the black goo from Prometheus to try and save her life because she's dying. And of course, she gives birth to this. Man, it was like this weird, like acid cocoon thing that this baby came out of. That was gnarly. Well, but I don't
even
know.
Rewinding a little bit, because it's a thematic tie-in of the series, and a lot of them there's this whole element of like violations, the psychosexual element, and there's sort of like very heavy themes there. And this movie like really leaned into that with like the face huggers, the way they looked, and how they would like attack them, and like there was that one cocoon that looked and there was a lot of that sort of like that sort of thing, and then that kind of combined with this sort of like that where she was impregnated by the alien, and I thought that like the way those creatures and things looked were so like it was really well done. Like I really liked it, but it obviously is like very like intense shit for sure. But like when the cocoon comes out and she's like that was a horrifying part where she's like, get it away from me or whatever. I was like, oh
That was pretty
is
intense.
really gnarly. Yeah.
The scene, like, if you're squeamish, oh boy,
Oh yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
there was so much blood coming out of her as she was giving birth. I was sitting there just like, like, just it was a gnarly, bloody scene, very reminiscent of Prometheus, actually.
Yeah. What did you? Yeah. Actually, that's another great example of that thematic element.
Yeah.
But what did you think was better about Alien Resurrection in this regard?
Two things. Number one, I thought that it meant more that it was Ripley's offspring, for lack of a better term, and I thought that like when it died, I thought that was more, because like Ripley has this great look on her face when the baby dies, for lack of a better term, in that movie. She's sad because it's like, again, it's as close to motherhood as she's ever gonna get. Even though she has a daughter, but her daughter has passed away, obviously, in the time between Alien and Aliens.
And she lost Newt.
Yeah, and she lost Newt, so she's kind of reliving that again. But I think that the design to me was just, I don't know, maybe I think I need to watch it again, because I thought that it was disturbing, but also it looked too human to me. And I think the face of the one in Resurrections really kind of sold you on how, like, that creature was more, I think, like, and this sound like, I don't mean this in a negative context, but like pathetic. You know what I mean? Like it was a creature that didn't want to be born the way it was. It looked sad, and you felt bad for it. Whereas this one was kind of like just creepy and a killer. And I feel like we kind of got our fill of that with the aliens and the xenomorphs in this movie. And like, so I don't know. It wasn't like as disturbing to me. Like I felt more disturbed because I felt sorry for the thing in Alien Resurrections versus like
Sure.
this movie where I was just like, oh, just kill this thing. Like, you know, get rid of it, eject it out. So that's my only critique. Now that being said, it's a small critique. And I think that it still worked really well. I maybe would have just shortened the scene from, like, I don't know, if it was 15 minutes, I would have made it 10.
That's what the design of it is kind of what I liked about it, that it was more human looking, because it got me there was just that made it even more like that was, it was sort of an uncanny valley type thing. Whereas the kid, I kind of think the one is cute in the Alien Resurrection.
A little.
It's very nasty. But this one, it's like there's something very scary about being chased down by something that's like sort of human but not really.
Yeah.
But also, like, it makes me think of, like, there's sort of like all these overlapping elements in Alien between humanity and like AI, and then humanity. It started though like with humanity and sort of like the alien, and there's a symbiotic relationship, and I like how there's sort of like Venn diagrams between all these different types of beings, you know. And I think I did like that sort of thing, that it was just sort of like a person that it happened to. But I do agree with you, and I think it's a bigger example of that line from Aliens I was talking about, where it is taking something that I think what had like a very more of an impactful story element to a previous character and repackaging it. And I do agree, like, it did hit a little bit harder from like a character standpoint, like that it was Ripley, you know, that it was Ripley in that. And then in this, it took, you know, it was like, okay, she's pregnant, she has to get the Prometheus juice in her, I think, like, right, that was like a key factor to it, right? I assume that she required that. So it's sort of like,
and it's ironic because she actually would have been fine if she didn't inject her. I mean, she didn't know that at the time, but like she was dying, and so she injected herself. She would have made it if she hadn't, but there you go.
So yeah, that's a little bit more like, it's less of a, you know, like, and like the character, like I really wasn't into that character. So
that's kind of the thing too. I felt like that character of everybody was kind of the weakest one. Like, again, she didn't have a whole lot of like anything really. She has very little agency.
But I was gripped just by, I was fascinated by it. Like, it was different than when I see that nasty creature now from Resurrections. I probably reacted like it was crazy in that. But now when I see it, I'm like, this is so cool. Like, it's a cool effect, and and like I kind of feel bad for the guy now that I see how it got sucked out of that little hole or whatever. Like you said, in this one,
his bones, man, his bones.
I
Oh,
like that I was like, I don't look at that thing and go, this looks cool. Like I like that it makes my skin crawl, in like a way that some of the creatures don't fully at this point, now, like for example, you mentioned it already, the alien looked really cool, and in a lot of the close-ups of it, I was just like, man, this looks so awesome.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is so awesome. So I liked seeing a thing that I was just like, get it away from me.
You know what? I almost forgot to shout this out, but sort of off topic. But man, I think that this movie, of any other movie in this franchise, did the absolute best job of making the face huggers seem terrifying. They're pretty scary in Aliens as well, but like this movie, man, the face huggers, I felt
Yeah.
like as scared when they were on screen as like when an alien was on screen, because like
Yeah.
there was so much, dude, when they were coming out of that room and there's like all of them at the door, and the one, oh dude, that one set piece where I don't know how realistic this is, but like they're basically like raise the temperature in the room, and they're like basically like little T-Rexes
Is that
that like they
new
can't see
to the-
you, but
That's like new, right? To the
I
lore,
think so,
sort of?
yeah. I think that was
I
new
think that's
lore.
kind of a cool.
Yeah.
Like I always like when you get to add your own little bit to the deal with like a monster. Like, oh,
Yeah.
actually, vampires can't do this or
They
whatever.
can't have
Like, that's
garlic,
what
so there you
it-
go.
like, okay, sure.
I thought that
Um,
was so awesome, man. Like,
It
like
made sense.
don't make a sound they're going through. And first of all, there's no way that like you're, because the Andy's like, if you're stressed, they'll see you. If you're sweating, you'll see you. And I'm like, brother, if I'm going in that room, my stress level's already at like 100 out of 100. Like, there's no way, But that was such an awesome scene.
It has one of those moments that I think people like. I was into it, but I think I could see people like causing a fuss about it. It's like I'm sort of like, turn off the fucking radio when you're going through this room.
Yeah, that's probably a very important thing that you should do. I kind of was also just like, dude, come on. Like, there's no way that these things aren't like, as soon as that thing came on, there's no way they aren't jumping over there. But I don't know, maybe they
Yeah.
were. They probably would have actually been better just to blast some music, like somewhere.
Right?
That's
That's
what I
a
would've
good
done.
idea. Yeah, then you could have gotten a good needle drop in there.
Yeah, get
Could have
some,
played
some new metal.
Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. Then it would have been a really like a good horror sequel. Yeah, once you get new metal in there.
That would have been actually pretty unreal. But yeah, the face huggers of this movie were awesome. Very threatening, very Metroid like, actually, like very like the way that they attach to you, very very similar. Because really, like, that's what Metroids really are, is like face huggers, and the other aliens are more like an Omega Metroid or something like that. But I love that. Also, just a great escape sequence at the end too, with the ship about to hit the rings of the planet. I thought that was cool. The rings,
was
I actually
sick.
thought in the ending looked awesome.
There's a couple like fun moment. Like I feel like I could see it being like a Metroid game sort of set piece. Like there's like the
Yeah.
whole elevator shaft scene. And then the standout one for me was the zero gravity scene.
That was
Were there-
so awesome.
Let's just
talk
was
about
so
that.
much like a video game. I felt like I loved it.
So, and you know what? I really love this idea, because like so everybody gets these weapons, and they're like, okay, now we can fight back against the aliens. And Andy's like, whoa. If you shoot these guys, they're gonna bleed acid and burn a hole in the ship. We're on the bottom hull of the ship, so if you shoot them, you're toast. Which I love, man. Like, I really don't think that we've gotten better as the series goes on, but I really don't think that the series like really does a good enough job of like really selling like these things have acid for blood, which is as deadly as like anything else that they do. So I loved that scene. So the way they get around this is they're like, okay, we're gonna turn off the gravity, whatever, the gravity machine that's giving us gravity here. We're gonna shoot them, and then the ass is just gonna float in the air. That was so gnarly. Oh my god, that was so wicked.
And it's like, yeah, you could like they had to like float by and avoid the
Oh,
arcs of the.
That was so good, man.
Then when it comes
Golly.
back on, it goes, psh, and they establish sort of the, there's like even when there's 0G, it like has to reboot every once in a while, so that you sort of
Yeah.
have that like. There's a lot of things that happen that it's like, this is to create a tense moment later, and you're like, yep, I'm ready for it. Like,
Yeah, I'm
like
okay
it's
with
just
that.
like an X-ray thing. I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna we're gonna see something gnarly with that later.
Yeah. Actually, let's just talk about it now, because I want to talk about the kills in this movie. That's I love a good alien movie. I love all the philosophical stuff. I love the lore, but I also just love seeing people
That's what I'm there for.
get
Yeah.
eaten up by aliens. So I want to talk. What was your favorite kill of the movie? I have to
Oh, that's
say,
a good question.
I think it was the first one for me, Navarro. It's obvious one, but like
Which
man,
one was this?
she
That
was
was
she was
the
the one that got the face hugger. She had the chest
Oh,
burst.
yeah, and like that was with the X-ray thing. That
That
was
was the
cool.
X-ray thing. That was so good. Like like it's different now because you know it's coming and like she's desperately fighting against it, but like just seeing it just oh man, very visceral, very. It was a good one.
There was like the just really freaky stuff with like getting the acid on people getting the acid on them and stuff. It was like really
Well, that's how the douchebag died, and I thought that was cool actually, but I have to admit I was like. This guy sucks so much. I thought I was kind of hoping for something a bit more gruesome for him, to be
something
honest.
worse.
Like, I guess that's pretty worse though. You see his fingers, like the bones are like melting away. Like
that
ugh.
that really got me like good. Like that was probably like the kill that sort of like gnarled me out the most, got under my skin. Yeah, I was seeing the bones and stuff. Ugh.
I don't think that. So Tyler is like your lead guy in this movie. I thought that his kill was like just okay. Actually, he got scooped up by an alien tail. He got dragged up, and I don't believe you really
No,
saw
yeah,
him
yeah.
kind of bite it. You know, I don't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, you know, a lot of what I think about the memorable stuff in terms of like the quote unquote like gross stuff, the violence and stuff. Like there was not really a lot of characters like who die like
Yeah.
in the movie, like even compared to like the Alien, the first one is just pretty simple. I feel like there's you see more characters bite it or whatever. Um, but it was more of just in like I said, seeing like the the things wrapped around them, like when they
Mhm.
when they pull them out and there's like that long thing that comes out of their mouth, like that stuff's gross. Like the egg sac thing, like that stuff was all really what got me. And like the kill, like yeah, those kills all uh gnarled me out except for the one, but it was the other stuff that really got to me. So
I think I agree with that. Yeah, like the like Kay, so the pregnant sister. Like I thought that the scene where Andy wouldn't let her out of the room because the alien and you see the xenomorph, it's just waiting for them to open that door so it could take all
yeah,
of
oh
them.
man,
Dude, that was so. Oh my god, that was so creepy. And then finally, the xenomorph's like they're not opening the door, so it takes her. I thought that was really engaging. You don't see the kill, obviously she survives, but like that moment I thought was incredible. And
that was
it wasn't her death, but man, that birth scene, holy cow. Oof.
exactly. Yeah, see another moment where it's like it's not really about that character's death, but like yeah, ugh.
Yikes. That was something, man. That was something. Um, yeah, no, I thought that overall I was really, really impressed with like how many references and like just paying homage to other movies, like the other movies in the franchise without I didn't think it was excessive in any part. Um, I mean, obviously, like in a way, you brought up the Force Awakenings, and everybody says like the Force Awakenings is kind of like the same movie as the first Star Wars. Sort of,
Yeah.
kind of. I feel like the same applies with this movie and Aliens. Like, of course, it's referencing Alien a ton,
Yeah.
but like, there's tons of aliens in this movie as well. Like the facehuggers are more of a threat. Obviously the ending where they go and storm the nest, and that was creepy as hell. Actually, seeing like that like nesting portion. Well, that was gross. I actually, so I didn't think that there was a ton of Alien 3 references there, other than I guess the planet that struck me as like
Yeah.
the mining planet. I mean, it might as well have been a prison, like kind of the same setting in a way
Yeah,
as
similar
Alien 3.
vibe-ish, sort of. Yeah.
Kind of. The ending is obviously very reminiscent of Alien Resurrections, and we talked about there's a lot of references to Prometheus, the birth scene, the black gooey stuff, and even Covenant. I think had its moments there where you see like these androids, Andy and Rook, that like are very clearly up to their own machinations and agendas and whatnot. So I thought that it really did do a good job of kind of like tying together everything in the Alien franchise that we know into like a really accessible package, because like you could watch this movie, I feel like, without watching any other Alien and you'd be fine.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. And I think one final thing I was thinking about is just that, it was a good like theater going movie, and I saw it with a bunch of people, and like even the stuff like I that line I mentioned, like people popped for that and everything, and it was just like fun to see it in theaters, like
Mm,
even midday. It wasn't like a packed theater, but seeing it with people who were like reacting to it and stuff was very fun. And it honestly, it just got me thinking about Prey, which we've talked about before. And I'm like, man, I wish that was in theaters. Like it felt like very comparable to that movie, where it was
it
like
did, yeah.
it, it that went more in a new setting and everything, I think. But it kind of was like a fresh,
Yeah, back to the
refreshing of the
basics.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I'm glad that it actually got a theatrical release, and hopefully there's more to come.
I hope so, because I thought that this was like really, really good. I am hoping that, like, we've always kind of danced around it, and I guess Prometheus probably did as much of this as any other movie, but like I'm ready to kind of fully get into like the Wayland Yutani Corporation and see like everything in that company. Like I want to know like what
Yeah,
I'm ready for that story. Like I want it to continue.
that that was an element that I felt like held the series together for a while. Not the only thing, obviously, just like
Yeah.
Ripley coming back, but I felt like even with the last two, like it was more about that philosophical stuff. There was a little bit of the the corporation in there, but like
Hmm.
that's the thing that I really care about in those movies. Like I think that's like what makes Aliens work so well, is that despite what happened, we're gonna send you back, or we need you to go back to help us, and we're still gonna, it's something I think we can relate to, in that there's this catastrophic, uncontrollable um, force that we could save ourselves from, and these corporations are going to keep doing what's worst for humanity, and they're going to do that by exploiting the people from under them
Yeah.
for their gain. And I'm like, that's very relatable. I'm like, what? Let's go more into that.
I think so,
I
man.
like the what does it mean to be a human and stuff like that. That's cool. But I definitely connect with those type of movies more, for sure.
Well, and I think the good news is that you could do both with the story. Like, and I think
I think so.
I
Yeah.
think that's hopefully where we're headed. Particularly, like I said, with Alien Earth, I think that that's going to be a show focused on Wayland Yutani. So I'm really, really stoked about that. Um, and yeah, I thought that this was just a great movie. It was a great Alien movie. In a lot of ways, probably the best Alien movie. And I just yeah, I thought that it was fantastic, and I think it's what Alien fans wanted. Like I think that like as an Alien fan, I think all you wanted this movie to be was just like a really solid, enjoyable movie. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like that you could build upon. And in terms of that, I think this movie was like a 10 out of 10, like hit a home run. So I thought it was fantastic, and I definitely got to watch it again because I want to experience
Yeah.
it again. So yeah, great
I
movie.
think it. I think it's cool too, because it leaves it. You can build off of it, and it's not like it's different than Force Awakens in that it's like, and how could you not? But it's like, okay, like we've got like all these other characters from the old movies here that we
Hmm.
kind of got to deal with, and I like that. We did have Rook or whatever, but overall, like it seems like we could go and do anything, and so it would be cool to see you know something that even still stays away from that stuff. Like I think Ripley, keep Ripley, let her
Let her
rest.
rest. Yeah.
Still they've been doing that. Try to avoid those type of things. And I think if Fede Alvarez gets a chance to again, I think maybe he would. I think he's probably would avoid doing that. Like he's kind of proven himself, so maybe
I think
see
so.
where he
Yeah.
takes it.
Um, it's exciting because like I feel like if you told me the next movie was about Rain and Andy, I'd be like, great, like that's awesome. But if you told me the next movie was just like with completely new characters, I think that like as long as you still kind of establish that backdrop with like Wayland Yutani and everything like that, I think that would work fine too, actually. So it does kind of feel like we are open to infinite possibilities here for what we can do next, which I think is exciting. And they still have, so the whole agenda was to save that black goo, which is supposed to accelerate human evolution, but obviously, as we saw, doesn't. Well, I mean, I guess it does accelerate evolution, but not in a great way. So that is still, that's still in play. So we'll see what that's all about. But yeah. I was really happy when I left. I thought that it was a great movie. I thought that it was a great Alien movie. It made me excited for more in the future. And yeah, it was exactly what I wanted from this movie. It gave me everything I wanted. I have a few small nitpicks here and there, but like certainly nothing that I would say is like a deal breaker by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, people should go see it while it's still in theaters. I think.
Yeah,
I would recommend that. Yeah,
definitely got to see it in theaters. Okay, Goo, any final thoughts about Alien Romulus before we get on out of here?
no, it was good. I guess while we were talking there, I had the thought that like I think they have a good opportunity to, because similarly, the last Evil Dead movie, which was like it was not a sequel, but it was like the one that came out after the reboot, had a completely new setting we hadn't seen in the series before, and sort of a new spin on it and a new take. And I think, I think that they've kind of reestablished it like they can do it. So it's a different director for that, but you know what I mean? I think they've kind of established this world and like this type of this franchise again, I guess, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I could see this appealing to like younger audience too. So like horror movies do really well. And I think like this could, garner some interest for another one. So
I mean, people like it. It's got a great score so far on Rotten Tomatoes. It looks like it's making money, so that's fantastic.
nice.
So I think
Then
the future looks
sure we'll
bright.
get another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shout out. So obviously, I thought Andy was the best part of Alien Romulus, and I'm gonna shout out another Andy on this show before we get out of here. This Andy is an author by the name of Andy Kelly, who has an upcoming book that I pre-ordered yesterday called Perfect Organism. And it's about the making of Alien Isolation. So I'm looking forward to that. So if anyone is kind of in the Alien vibe right now and wants to read a little bit more about, one of the better games, I think, like a franchise game rather, that's not based on an original video game franchise, I think you should check that out. I think it's gonna be really cool. But yeah. That's Alien Romulus. Maybe I don't know, maybe in like a year or two, we'll maybe do like a second watch episode, see if our thoughts have changed. But for now, yeah. I think that's all she wrote for Alien Romulus now. Go check it out. See it in theaters before it's gone. You'll have a good time.
Yeah.
If you like listening to Goo and I talk about movies, do I have a podcast for you? It's called Virtual Theater, the podcast about video game movies and the stories that shape them. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. We talk, obviously about video game movies, but, we also talk about other stuff as well. And so this episode is going to be released on Virtual Theater's feed as well as Omega Metroid. So check that out. And if you're listening from Omega Metroid to this, go like and subscribe to Virtual Theater. And hey, vice versa, if you're listening on Virtual Theater, want to hear some more Metroid stuff, go check it out. Goo and I have done all the Alien movies over on Omega Metroid, so a lot for you to sink your teeth into. Goo, what's going on in the world of you? Anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
We got to do, I don't think we've done Covenant.
We haven't done Prometheus. Well, I want to redo Prometheus, and I want to do.
We did that on Virtual Theater. There's we're similar to the human alien hybrids in that there's been so much symbiosis. It's hard to say what's what.
Symbiosis, good word.
Check out Virtual Theater. Check out Flashback 64. And yeah, thanks for having me, I guess, on Omega Metroid.
All right, well, let's do this thing. We are going to get out of here, but of course, we want to encourage everybody to check us out wherever you get your podcast. Go like and subscribe, recommend, rate, review, all of that kind of good stuff. Omega Metroid and Virtual Theater are available wherever you get your podcast, so go and check us out. Check out OmegaMetroid.com. We have tons and tons and tons of walkthroughs, maps, guides for all the different Metroid games. We have news over there, editorials, thought pieces. pretty much everything that you could ask for if you're a Metroid fan. So go and check out omegametroid.com. And you can also check out us over on Patreon. We are at patreon.com/SBNet. The Great Metroid Area Ranking rolls along, which is actually inspired by Gooey Fame's Gooey's Dungeon Dive over on YouTube.
Okay,
so
check that out.
just go check that out. What are we at? Goron Mines? Is that where we're at?
Yeah,
now?
that's the last one. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're kind of going through. We're playing all of like Twilight Princess, so I'm just going to be playing that for a long time.
God
As
bless
opposed
you.
to forcing myself to play a lot in a short amount. I'm like, you know what? We're gonna take our time.
You know
We're
what?
gonna go fishing,
That's the way
goat
to do
herding.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do not want to play Twilight Princess in a short amount of time. Trust me.
Yep.
So yeah, go check that out.
Sure.
And then yeah, give us a follow wherever you are over on social, Twitter, Blue Sky, all that kind of stuff. At Spiteri316, at Gooey Fame, at Omega Metroid, at Virtual Theater. And that, my friends, is going to do it for us. So until next time, everybody, take care.
Are you sure you want to do this?